I don't think it will come as a shock to anybody when I say that celebrities suck. Well, most of them. In general, celebrities seem to have this god complex that is completely unwarranted and renders them super unapproachable and just out of touch with the average human. On top of that, they make exorbitant amounts of money, and they also push their agendas onto people who quite frankly don't give a crap about anything they're saying. It's for these reasons that I completely dismiss the idea of celebrating celebrities, and I think stuff like stan culture should come to a complete end immediately. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen, and so we will continue to have celebrities exist on this earth in some capacity, which for better or for worse, is just reality. With all that being said, there will inevitably be a time when you bump into one of these celebrities at either a bar or on the streets or at a restaurant or at school or at work, and you have to be prepared with what's going to happen. I went to school at New York University, and I lived in New York for a couple of years after that, so living in Manhattan gives you plenty of opportunities to bump into celebrities, and a lot of these experiences are super unique, and so I'm excited to share them with you guys. So today, I'm going to provide for you my 5 most notable celebrity encounters. I'm going to start this video off on a positive note and introduce to you my favorite celebrity I've ever met, and genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever encountered, and that is NBA superstar Blake Griffin. It was the first day of my sophomore year at college, and I was walking home from my econ class on 23rd Street in Gramercy. Now, mind you, it was a hot day outside, about 92 degrees Fahrenheit, and so being the New Jersey-bred Chad I was, I had on a sleeveless shirt. And this shirt, in particular, happened to be a basketball jersey. The jersey in question was a Blake Griffin LA Clippers jersey. And as I was walking back home, this black Escalade all of a sudden pulls behind me, and I thought that I was about to get jumped. I was on the phone with my friend at the time, and I remember telling him, hold on a second, this black SUV just pulled up inches behind me. Now, before my brain could process whether or not this was a dire situation, I hear the words "yo" being belted from the back window of the Escalade. And so I turn around, and no other than Blake Griffin himself is peeking his head out the window, staring at me, then waving me to come over. Me and Blake dap each other up, and I'm trying to keep it as chill as possible, given that I'm meeting an NBA superstar. I was so thrown off by the situation, but the one thing I knew I wanted to do was get a picture with him. And so the first thing I did was open Snapchat for some reason, because I think it didn't invert the picture, so I at least had the presence of mind to know that. But before I could even pull my camera out, he says to me, "Yo, do you want a picture?" And of course I say yeah, and we take our picture, in which he seems super excited to just be with me. The picture itself actually looks like he's meeting me and he's the fan of me, but that just goes to show how cool he was in that situation. And we have a brief convo for about 30 seconds, something to the degree of, "Hey, thanks for wearing my jersey out here in New York. I really appreciate that." He asked if I was from LA, and I told him I was from New Jersey. And I think he had just told me an anecdote about how he was in Jersey the day before. But the fact that I was wearing Blake Griffin's jersey at the exact moment when Blake Griffin himself, in New York City, not LA, was driving by on Gramercy, is easily one of the lowest probability events that could possibly happen. It was just one of those breaks in the simulations that you can't really explain. And because of how cool he was, I continue to be a fan for life, and I always root for him, and he's one of my favorite players still. Next up is AnnaSophia Robb. If you don't know who she is, you could give it a quick Google search, but she plays Violet in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and she was also the girl in Bridge from Terabithia. I think she was in a couple of more movies, but nothing too notable. She was primarily a child star, and I don't think she even acts much anymore. Me and her attended NYU at the same time, and I want to say that she was a senior when I was a freshman. But basically, when I got to NYU, I had a ton of confidence for no reason, and I would just reach out to everybody. I would use the NYU directory to get people's emails and then reach out to them in a cold fashion, just trying to get to network with them and just be friends with them. And so when I had heard that AnnaSophia Robb went to NYU, to be honest with you guys, I was looking for a date at first. I think I disguised the message by putting a mutual friend on there and acting like it was pertaining to some modeling gig or something. But in reality, my intentions were to meet up with her and then hopefully just win her over, I guess. She basically got back to me saying she wasn't interested or something about how she wasn't in the city. But the semester after, I ended up having a run-in with her on Washington Square Park, in which I basically went up to her and said, "Hey, I'm the guy who emailed you about X." And she had actually remembered, and we had a pretty good conversation for about 5 minutes, but she was going back to Colorado to film something, so then it kind of died right there. But when I met her there, she was super sweet. And at that point, I was kind of over AnnaSophia Robb, so I no longer had any intentions. So I was just talking to her as like a normal human. She was honestly as cool as she could have been, so I give her a 9 out of 10. The only reason I'll dock her a point is because we never ended up going on a date, so yeah. Going off of the theme of my fellow NYU classmates, I actually attended NYU at the same time as the Sprouse twins. Dylan and Cole Sprouse, known for their role on Sweet Life and Zack and Cody, attended NYU around the same time that I did, and I actually had a fair amount of run-ins with them. So I was a part of the NYU Super Smash Bros. Melee Club. The Sprouse twins would regularly go to the events, and they would commentate top 8 events, and they would actually play friendlies with a lot of people. And while I never played with them before, I did get to talk to them a few times at these events, and they were super cool and down to earth. Some of the nicest celebrities that you could imagine. But the encounter that sticks out the most to me is not at these events, but rather at a bar. I was probably 19 at the time, and me and my friend who I went with were both pretty buzzed because we pre-gamed at this Mexican bar beforehand. If you go into Sly Fox, in the back, there's this one area where basically people can kind of congregate. But other than that one area, it's really not conducive to a lot of people. So we kind of naturally made our way back there just because that's where the most people were. And then sitting at a table with, no joke, 9 girls were Dylan and Cole Sprouse. And so we kind of started dancing, and then his entire group started migrating towards us. It felt like 2 magnets just coming together. And eventually this one song came on that required a bit of movement, and it got us close enough where it wasn't weird to talk to them. And so I remember just saying like, "Oh, what up, guys?" But I was trying to play it cool, so I didn't acknowledge who they were. So it's kind of a weird dynamic because I was just saying what's up to random dudes in their eyes. But I think they understood that I knew who they were, but they were also trying to be cool. It was a little weird, to be honest. But the memory that sticks out the most to me is that me and Cole Sprouse were leaving the bathroom at the same time, and as we were exiting, we come across this super big hole in the wall, like some Kyle just punched through the wall out of rage. I'd say it was about a foot in diameter. It was super big, and me and him just looked at each other, and we're like, wow, rough night. And we just kind of had a chuckle about it, and it ended there, but yeah. Number 4 on this list is Wendy Williams. As most people do when they live in New York for the first couple of years, they like to go to a bunch of shows like SNL, Broadway shows, Hamilton, The Tonight Show, Late Night, and I was no exception. So I attended the Wendy Williams show when I was a freshman at NYU with all of my roommates because we were basically taking a tour of all of the talk shows. We had previously been to The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Late Night with David Letterman, the show The View, and a couple of others that I can't remember right now. But Wendy Williams was interesting because this crowd was unlike any other. We clearly didn't fit in, and it was a very weird vibe for 5 guys to just show up to Wendy Williams. And if you don't watch the show, which I didn't and still don't, there's a segment called Ask Wendy, which basically she picks beforehand a couple of people to ask on the show a question, and she would then answer it and provide her great advice. I'm sure you could see where this is going, but basically I was chosen to provide one of my questions to Wendy to ask on air. My friends and I didn't really have a real question for her, so I think we made up a question about my roommate is having sex while I'm doing homework. What do you think I should do about it? She gave a very vanilla response, but I just remember the crowd going absolutely insane for her because her following is very cult-like, so the people were going berserk even though she had just given me the most average answer of all time. I think she said something to the effect of like, "Oh, well, you should talk to your roommate," or maybe you should do your homework in a library. And of course, for television, I wanted to act like it was a good response, so I was basically like, "Thanks, Wendy." But prior to all of that happening, I actually met her beforehand backstage because her and her producer were sort of going over how the segment was going to go. Now, she's done nothing great for her image in the past couple of weeks and years.
Oh, she passed away? Oh. All right.
I know she said a couple of controversial things that have gotten her canceled and stuff, but she nonetheless prevails. She has a cult following, and she was nice enough to me, so I'd give her about a 7.5 out of 10. She was a little weird, but I think that's to be expected with anybody like her. She's just sort of in her own world and a bit aloof, and then you could tell when the cameras turn on, she's a different person when the cameras are off, which is okay. I am too, but she was weird. But nice. While a lot of these experiences that I've shared have been positive, there's been one that has been overwhelmingly negative. 3 years ago, I was going shopping in Soho with a couple of my friends as we were picking up some outfits because I think we were going out to a nice place at night. And after we completed that, we all went our separate ways to go home so we can get ready for the night. I was walking on Prince Street on my way back to the Lower East Side where I'd lived at the time. I had my headphones in and I was probably listening to Spotify's Today's Hits or something like that. Now, the sidewalks on Prince Street are somewhat narrow, so I was walking closer to the building rather than the street. I was about 30 seconds from my turn, and that's when it hit me. Like, literally, that's when it hit me. A door had flung open, hit me in my right arm, and knocked my headphone out of my ear. I take a couple more steps forward, just sort of dismissing it as an accident, because then again, why would a door open outward anyways? But I decided to take a look back, because it was pretty rude that the person didn't at least apologize. As I take a look back, about 4 feet from me stands Jonah Hill, standing outside of the apartment, basically staring at me. Jonah Hill just staring at me, almost as if he expected me to apologize for walking into his door. I was so unbelievably shocked that I couldn't even say anything to him. All I was able to muster out of my body at the time was a shrug, basically indicating what the fuck, man. He doesn't even acknowledge the shrug, and he just continues to stare at me. But this time, it looks like he wants me to acknowledge something, almost as if he's waiting for me to acknowledge that he's Jonah Hill. It was such a weird situation, and he never ended up apologizing, so I just kept walking forward. As I was leaving there, I had to pinch myself because I genuinely thought that I was dreaming. But as I kept walking, I realized that this was actual reality. Jonah Hill is a dick. He was at least a dick to me in that moment, so I give him a 1 out of 10. What's weird about this is that I've heard a lot of conflicting stories about his personality and a lot of people saying he's a genuinely nice guy. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt and saying he was having a bad day. Maybe he had a long day of filming that one show that he had on HBO. This incident by far is the worst interaction I've had with a celebrity. But what are you going to do about it? People are people. They have their good and bad days, and I just happened to catch him, I'm sure, on a bad day.